Hello, my name is Skylar.
And my name is Tyler. I pay respect to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation where Dad's podcast is recorded.
I live on Bunjil land. I believe Bunjil is the creator of land of our first peoples. He is the creator of the land of where I am right now.
I pay my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Hello and welcome to Over the Rainbow, a podcast series dedicated to all things rainbow dads. This is Murray and I am your host, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Kenny. Kenny is a rainbow dad and also a doctor. I thought it would be a good idea to chat with a medical professional. Have you all sent in your questions? Thanks guys, and for me to ask him. We cover baby preparation, when to go to a doctor, nurse on call, temperatures, maternal child health checkups, and we even discuss the menstrual cycle. Being a dad can be overwhelming, and this chat really is a one-on-one guide to some of the more practical elements of caring for a new bubba. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Over the Rainbow, a podcast series dedicated to all things rainbow dads. Sitting in front of me is a very special guest that I've invited onto my podcast, Dr. Kenny. Hi, Kenny.
Hi, Murray. How are you?
So let's establish the ground rules. I can call you Dr. Kenny, or do I call you Doc? What's up, Doc? What's the official greeting?
I introduce myself as Kenny.
Kenny.
In professional environments, but people may choose to call me Dr. Kenny.
Okay. So I'm going to call you Dr. Kenny because I think it's just got a fabulous ring to it. And who knows, after this episode, you will probably be the regular guest to this episode to discuss things all health and medicinal.
Oh, gosh, that's kind of scary.
Kenny's given me a look like, yeah, we'll see. So, Kenny, let's start off with just talking about everyone that I invite onto this podcast. I like them to first and foremost be a rainbow dad or have a connection to the rainbow dad community. You are a rainbow dad. Tell me about your journey to becoming a dad.
Sure. So my husband, Darren, and I have 2 children. Charlotte is turning 8 shortly, and Iris just turned 6 in the middle of this year. So we went through surrogacy in the United States. I think the idea of having a family wasn't something that was placed early in our relationship. In fact, it came out of nowhere for me on a night where Darren casually asked if I wanted to have a family together.
How long had you been dating?
Well, we met in 2009, but because of our careers, we never officially announced ourselves as a couple until our careers were more settled.
Yeah.
So probably around 2012, 2013, when we found ourselves being together in Melbourne more often than previously, that this came up.
Yeah, right. So he threw the grenade and said, "What do you think about having children?" What was obviously your response was yes, because you've got 2 kids.
Yeah, I was open to it, although I must say that it wasn't something that I've given much thought about at that time. In reflecting on my career and my interactions with children in the professional setting, I enjoy and love the kids that I see.
Yeah.
I also think that we could offer quite a bit in terms of nurturing, bringing children into this world, into adulthood. So yeah, we were quite open from it from the beginning.
That's an interesting point that you make, and it's kind of made me reflect. I would imagine for a lot of queer people, and in particular queer men, that when you're in a relationship and one of the partners says, you know, do you want to think about children, or however it happens, I wonder whether there is, you know, because you don't, when you're dealing with your sexuality and you're coming out, you don't really put that on the table, do you? You don't think that that's going to be a reality for you. And then suddenly that door's open where it's like, oh, hang on, if we want to have kids, we can.
Yeah, and that's certainly a barrier that I felt led me to ignore the potential.
For sure.
And there are people who always known that they've got a nurturing character and always wanted to be a parent.
Yes.
But for the rest of us, the idea of being a parent might come later when you're in a more settled headspace with yourself,
absolutely.
in your relationship.
Yeah.
But it's challenging, particularly when I think about my journey. I haven't come out to my parents yet when we embarked on the surrogacy journey.
Right.
It wasn't until about 4 or 5 months before Charlotte was born, my older child, that suddenly everything's fallen in front of me that I have to take the step and come out. And soon after that, we were told that we need to get married to facilitate the transfer of parentage in the States. And finally, I have to break the message that my parents are also having another grandchild, all in a small span of 2 to 3 months.
That must have been a really heavy period for you, because it's filled with joy, but a little bit of dread, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult. I see some same-sex marriages in the social media, and we naturally read some of the comments, even though our parents are part of the joyous moment. But I think we also feel the heartbreak that's inside of them, even though they're giving the support. Is a huge challenge to their perspective and upbringing philosophy about life.
Massive shift.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful. My parents have come around over time to be very supportive, but I can just imagine back then, when I bit the bullet, I said to myself, it was a matter of being open and honest, and ultimately I need to live my life.
Yes.
And I'm not really abandoning my parents, but the choice unfortunately sits with theirs to decide what they want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you said that they came around and it's all great.
Yeah. They've been supportive ever since we've had our child.
It's amazing.
I think slowly they digested the information, and then the welcoming of my family.
Yes.
And slowly they learned to accept and share with the more extended family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you've got 2 kids, you've got a wonderful husband, you've got a supportive family, and you're also a doctor. Tell me about being a doctor. How long have you been a doctor for? And what kind of doctor are you?
I've been a medical doctor from about 2007. So I've been practicing about 17 years now. I studied in Melbourne as an international student from Malaysia.
Right.
And I've remained in Melbourne since I graduated. I trained as a rural general practitioner, and that meant that we try to have a greater breadth of skills, largely to provide care in rural towns.
Is that because of the lack of other specialists that you the doctor needs to be a one-stop shop?
Yeah. And that's a common representation in media, where rural and remote towns, not just in Victoria, but across Australia, are experiencing doctor shortages.
Right, okay.
So the general practitioner It's basically the jack of all trades,
Yes.
and where there is a lack of specialists and allied health or equipment resources, the GP largely takes up the primary carer to as far an extent as possible.
Right.
We would attend to emergencies. We were on call 24/7. We would admit patients to hospital, do ward rounds, and then see our patients in the clinic during the day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fairly committed career in the rural setting.
But I mean, great in the sense that you're able to extend your knowledge and skills, and, you know, it's kind of almost being like when you start a job and you're thrown in the deep end and you do all things that are outside. It's kind of that. I'm sure it's kept you in good stead 17 years later as a GP.
It's very rewarding.
Yes.
Particularly from the patients who appreciate that the limitations that they have in terms of healthcare, where they've chosen to live or where they're limited to live. The bright side is that the skill set is broad, and it certainly open up a lot of channels, and that speaks for doctors who are GPs in general. They can subspecialize, they can choose a niche within the industry to provide services. The downside of rural general practice is family life, career growth opportunities, as well as education for the children. When you're in small rural towns, there are, as much as it can be very pretty and the community might be small knit, but it presents challenges as well when you're a doctor in a small town where everyone knows you, and your professional life and your social life becomes a bit
blurred,
intermingled. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd hate that. Yeah, and people stopping you in the grocery aisle saying, do you know what? I'm laughing in my head because we've been friends for a long time, and I've called on you many, many times. Can you help me? I need advice. But I could imagine patients, you know, seeing you out in sort of social settings, and just, that's not nice, is it?
It's a challenge.
It's challenging.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
go with
challenging. We are taught when we practice in these environments on how to navigate that.
Yeah. So tell me so what I did was when I've got people within the Rainbow community to send in questions to us that we're going to ask you. We might not get through all of them, but I've got a good set of questions. But first, I'm curious, in 17 years, have you seen many Rainbow families?
Rainbow families are far and few in between. They've only become more prominent and more common in more recent years.
I agree. Yeah.
And where we've chosen to live now in the Western Ranges, it was largely informed by the fact that I practice in that area and have seen a handful of rainbow families. Hence, we were open to buying in the area and raising our family there. And over the years, we've been very lucky to have a very open and accepting community, even though we don't have a large rainbow family community. The general community is accepting and very supportive.
Amazing. All right, Dr. Kenny, let's get into it. Brent and Rob. Brent has written in, and they are having a newborn baby that's on the way. And they've asked, what health and medical things do we need to consider before the baby is born? What are things that they can prepare for the birth of their child?
For themselves or for the baby?
Let's go both. Or probably not for themselves. They can take care of themselves. They're grown adults. For the baby. And I reckon, because I was reflecting on that question, I cast my mind back to before I had my two children. I was like, when the reality set in that I was going to be a dad, I had this freak out period where I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to drop them. I'm going to make a mistake. I don't know. And I went and did a course. I did a baby CPR course, and they were doing like all different things. And I was like furiously taking notes and going, right, can't forget this. This is really important. And then the reality of actually becoming a parent, and then you recalibrate and you're like, Okay. Not only are children very, very resilient, but it's a very natural thing that takes over when you become a parent. But for Brent and Rob, who haven't had their baby's on the way, what are some things that you think they could prepare for their child? What are some things to think of?
Yeah, I think to answer that, I will address the fact that the parents need to be prepared in terms of their headspace. They need to be prepared for a life-changing event.
Yeah.
When I say that, I mean that the child is not in a position to adapt and accommodate an adult's lifestyle. It needs to be the other way around. So in the lead up to having a child, we need to juggle our careers, our lifestyle, our mental health so that we can cope with it. I say that because it's important. The growth and development of your child is interrelated to your personal well-being. Even when you don't see it, the child feels it. If you're anxious, if you're angry, the child senses it, and that lends an opportunity for the child to feel anxious, unsettled, and it's very easy then to go into a vicious cycle. It uneases the parent, and the parent then wonders why they can't settle the child. The child becomes more unsettled. Yeah, I think that preparing yourself, giving yourself the time and space to consider how you would juggle your life in view of the upcoming newborn is important. As for the child itself, assuming that the child will be born full-term, healthy, without complications, there's actually not a lot you need to prepare for. It is a joyous moment, a moment that you want to consider not overwhelming your space.
Or overthinking.
Too many visitors, too many people trying to give you advice. It's so challenging to weigh up, isn't it?
Yes.
And
because you want to politely tell them to go get effed, but you just know the intention is obviously very pure and genuine, but it's conflicting advice that you're getting from all these different people.
Yeah. And the advice might be personal, experiential, and some of them might not be informed by evidence, and it might not be consistent with your your personal values.
Oh, just on that, when we moved from the UK to Australia, I was really concerned about the plane trip home and, the time difference, and Tala was still in the newborn stage. She was in the crib on the aeroplane. And so I started asking people for advice on, is there sleeping tablets for babies that I can get? And the advice that I got was like down from whiskey on the gums, and right through to like an antihistamine, to eventually what I learned was you don't give anything to a baby.
No, that's right.
Yes. But everyone was giving me their advice on what to do. But then I learned that you don't give anything, and
And it's the same with sleep patterns. When a newborn comes into this world, for a lot of them, they're mostly active at night, which is a nightmare for parents. And it's something that we just unfortunately should be accommodating for the child, rather than hoping to reverse and turn that around.
How can I knock them out so I can get some sleep?
But it will settle in time. I think that if you can sort of keep that in mind, to think about how you manage that, your own lethargy and fatigue and the need to go to work along with that. It's important. So going back to the child comes out, they're usually healthy, then there is nothing you need to do. There are designated checks that doctors would do. They'll normally do one at the time of birth, and then
when it's born?
That's right. Great. When the child is born, they do an assessment immediately, and that's they do a scoring which gives an indication of how well the child is when they're born, and they observe them over the next 24, 48 hours at most. In fact, most healthy children may be able to leave soon after. In fact, in clinical practice, some experienced mothers just come in, give birth and leave. They've had so many children, they know what to expect, what to do.
Yeah.
But
what do they check? So they check the breathing, they check the size of the head and all of those kind of things. Like what?
Yeah. So right at the time of birth, they really want to know how energetic, how alert the baby is.
Oh, wow.
Whether they actually breathe spontaneously, whether they need additional supports to help them breathe.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then they see if they've passed anything through the back passage.
Yes.
So that's the very initial checks. And then usually within 24 hours later, then they get a full baby check.
Right, okay.
And that's kind of like a head to toe check. Check their hips as well, listen to their lungs, their heart, feel for any masses, lumps and bumps, make sure that there's anything that's not abnormal there.
Yeah, right. Okay, great. And so what, to conclude with Brent and Rob, anything that they should buy? Should they go out and is there like a starter kit, like a thermometer? I don't know.
Yeah. I think by the time a child comes, most parents would have their crib or a cot set up.
Yes, yeah.
They'll have their wraps, the clothes, the full body suits, and the most of us rainbow dads would largely be feeding through bottles, and so getting a means of preparing your feeds, the different ways to
Sterilizer,
steamer, things like that. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Gary has asked, how does a child maternal health nurse work? What's the process there once your child's born?
Yeah. Once your child is born, particularly in Australia, you get a green book, which is a book that tracks the growth and development of your child, and it outlines certain growth parameters or milestones that are expected at a certain age. They also outlines the immunization record that would inform you to show up to either a doctor or the maternal child health nurse for the jabs. Yeah. And
that covers the child right up to a certain age, or do they carry that green book right through their life?
Largely no later than 4 years, but it's most used in the first 2 years, maybe 3 years. After that, it becomes a bit of an artifact or an ornament at home.
Yeah, right. Okay, but it's a good medical record for their first stages of life.
That's right, and normally, if you can also put in any printouts, paperwork related to the childbirth there, just for records if you ever need to refer to it. And sometimes when you see a doctor, the doctor might be interested to know, if they're what gestation, how many weeks were they when they were born, were there any complications, what mode of delivery they were delivered, and why that might be the case if it's not through a standard delivery. Also, if there were any complications at the time of birth, all this can be put all in together in the green book without information sort of in different places.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now Liam has asked, in what cases should you take your child to the doctors or hospital versus, being an over-anxious parent? So we might, because that's a pretty vague question, tell me about like fevers or because children, as we both know as being dads, they get sick all the time. At what stage do you learn, okay, well, this probably needs intervention, or I need to, go to the hospital? What would be your advice on that kind of realm?
Before I leave the green book has certain information like the weight, the head circumference, the length of the child from early stages. This is not something that we always know, but when we assess babies, particularly in the first 6 to 12 months, we like to know that they're growing according to their trajectory. So when you go and see a doctor, it's sometimes worth just grabbing that green book with you so that when the time comes, you've got that information at hand.
For sure.
So when do you become concerned versus being an overly anxious parent? I think the essentials to know of the needs of a newborn is that they feed, they sleep, they poo.
So true.
And that's all they do in the first, few weeks to couple of months of their life.
Yeah.
And then before it gets a bit more exciting, which then becomes playtime, alert time. So if they are doing all of this, they're happy in their interaction, they're feeding well, they're having regular wet nappies and poos. You don't see that their breathing is abnormal, there's no rash, there's nothing else out of the ordinary. That's normal for them, really. But when one of these parameters go out of range, then you begin to question, why is the child behaving the way they do?
Yes.
And so you then think that's when you might pick up your thermometer and check the child. Do they have a fever?
Is there, just on that, is there a hotline that you can call? There is, isn't there? There's a nurse on call.
There is a
right?
nurse on call service. The nurse on call service is a telephone service.
Yes.
So they can give you some basic advice, but anything.
It's kind of like the step before going. They probably implemented that for over-anxious parents going to the doctors and the hospitals when they don't need to.
Well,
I'm guessing.
Yeah, but it is a service that needs to protect its own governance in that they can't hold too much risk.
Yes.
And with the limited capacity to assess and not being doctors, there is potential that they are more cautious anyway.
For sure.
And so
if you're worried, go to the doctor. If you're worried, go to the hospital.
Yeah. But whilst we're on that topic, since COVID, the Victorian Virtual Emergency Department has grown significantly and is an outcrop service from the Northern Health that's statewide now, and it's a free service to all parents, all peoples living in Victoria and visitors in Victoria.
What is it, sorry?
The Victorian Virtual Emergency Department.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
And so Nurse on Call channels through to the Victorian Virtual Emergency. In short, we call it VVED. And so if the nurse is concerned, instead of telling you to go to your doctor or the emergency department, they would channel you to VVED. And it's a video telehealth consult service. It operates pretty much like an emergency department.
How incredible is that?
Yeah, and it's manned by nurse practitioners, doctors, which could be a GP, an emergency doctor, a physician, or pediatricians in this case when we're talking about children. There's a peds waiting room, peds doctors that's there to help.
Amazing. And I'll pop that in the show notes, and I will do some research to see if it's in any other states and put the link to that as well for people listening outside Victoria.
Yep, that'd be good.
It's amazing. So should we go to the next question, or did we finish that one?
So I would say that the medical community is more cautious of children who's less than 3 months old.
Right, okay.
So we define fever, largely speaking, to be 38 degrees Celsius and above. 37.5 and above could constitute a low-grade fever. I think from personal experience as well, the main thing to consider is, have we wrapped our bubs too much?
Right.
And if the child is well and as described in all the other aspects, then you could try and see if undoing some of the extra layers might bring the temperature down. Yeah. And fever is very non-specific. We usually like to know why, which is why sometimes we think that going to the doctor might be worth it. As a doctor, we always tell people, don't feel bad for being over anxious.
For sure.
It's hard being a parent. And so if you're concerned enough, bring them in. Like, we don't have a problem, seeing the child if it means that it alleviates your concern.
It's great advice. Great advice. That when in doubt, go to the doctor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Nobody's going to question that you've been silly.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. So just on the fever, so when you're holding the thermometer to the forehead. Is that the best way? The temperature guns.
Yeah, I think that's the most commonly available ones, and they're relatively accurate.
Yes.
I mean, you can still put your hand on the forehead.
I find that you can't do them, like if you do it once and you get the reading and then you go back and do it again, it can sometimes skew.
Yeah, and sometimes you can test it in yourself, to see that it's working properly. But there are different devices out there, but largely speaking, they're quite effective.
And usually the ones that I've used give a red or green, like they give like an emoji, like a smile. So it usually tells you whether something, but just on fever. So anything 37.5, was that what I heard correctly?
Yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, if you look at the information on the internet, it's usually 38 degrees because that's more certain of a true fever.
Yes. Yeah.
Under 38, which is 37.5, it may represent temporary temperature
Something's
that
off.
might be, they're too hot, for example. That's why I said, see if everything else is all right, it might not.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen, this is a doozy, so feel free to say pass. But Stephen has said, as two dads with a little girl, it is on our minds that one day we will have to deal with her menstrual cycle. I know that this stuff is taught in schools, but what if our daughter comes to us and asks us what is happening? Is there any advice in this area?
I haven't had to deal with that with my daughter yet. I think the essence of periods, it's not something that's commonly presenting to a doctor in clinics, because unless it's abnormal, and normally that what we see in the younger children who starts menstruating is usually irregularity, pain, or delayed menstruation.
So what is a menstrual cycle, or what is a period?
Yeah, okay. So a period is basically the shedding of layers of the uterus, that is the female reproductive tract that holds a baby during pregnancy. That layer on the uterus that sheds changes in thickness through the cycle that is known as the menstrual cycle. And so in a person with regular cycles, they go through pattern usually of a monthly cycle, potentially 3 to 7 days of bleeding, and then it starts all over again. And that cycle defines the period where, if you have plans to have a baby, being sexually active during part of that cycle increases the chance versus other parts of the cycle. But in essence, the period is just shedding off the lining of the uterus, and is a completely normal physiology of a female.
And the age of a menstrual, it's changing, right? That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so most children would start having their first periods in their early teenage years. A late onset period could be somewhere in the 15 or 16 years old.
Right.
By then, most of them would have had one. Yeah.
Very interesting. And I know that one you probably weren't expecting. But obviously you wouldn't go and see a doctor to say, my daughter's getting her period, what do we do? But it's more about, just thinking, that there's two dads, or there's a dad and the absence of a mother, which would traditionally take on that discussion.
I think that by the time daughter or a female child has their period, the period in medical term, we call it the first period, we call it the menarche. Before the menarche is the larche, which is where the child starts experiencing changes in their body.
Oh, right, in preparation.
That's right. They might be experiencing changes to their breasts. There might be breast buds that's developing. And when you come to that time, you may already have questions from your child about why this is happening. So by the time you got to have periods,
it's already that discussion has already entered the home. Or even that might be a sign for dad to know, okay, this is coming. prepare. And there's really great resources, guys, for anyone listening to this online about, perhaps you might want to find a special female in your daughter's life and, have, that can open up that discussion with your daughter or be that sort of second-hand person if your daughter wants to talk to a female about it. There's period packs. Have you heard of that? Where an actual welcome to womanhood pack is given to the girl. There's really good resources online. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Whilst you're talking about resources, there is an Australian government-funded website called Raising Kids. .net.au, I think, and that addresses a lot of the milestones of the children and the common issues as parents that we encounter, from physical health to mental health to bullying to teenage matters. Yeah.
And that is discussed in the classroom as well. They get that discussion.
Definitely.
Amazing. Okay, so there are all the questions, Dr. Kenny. I would love to wrap it up and get you to tell me, what's something as a parent you never expected? What's something that you wish you had been told before you became that now? Hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I think that everything is unexpected being a parent, because we cannot really put a child in a box, just like we can't put people into textbooks in medicine. They all come in different forms and they all think differently. And this is also come back to parenting. Like, there is no right or wrong way. I think the anxiety with parents is always, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the best? Well, most of us are doing our best. We can only do our best.
Totally.
And so if that is it, then don't feel bad about it. And it's not just you learning about your child, but the child is learning about you. So it's with any parent-child relationship, it takes time to know each other and to nurture so that you can get the best out of each other. I think that, I think when we become parents, my best advice is have an open mind. There's no textbooks, no advice that will fit in perfectly. You have to adapt to your child.
It is so true that you say that. Before I became a parent, I went and did all the courses. I bought all the books, never read the books. It just evolves and it just happens and you find a groove with it. It's almost like, I can't believe I'm using a car metaphor, but it's like changing gears in a car. Soon, before you know it, you'll be in cruise control and you've got it and you know what you're doing and it just works out, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that cruise control is you and your child. Another child comes along and you might not be cruising the same way.
Totally, absolutely. Hey, I did miss one from Matthew and I want to make sure that we get it in. Can you just briefly talk about immunisation? What are the jabs and why do we get them and why are they important and that kind of stuff?
So immunization is largely to create a level of immunity in our bodies against certain infections. And the primary injections are given at birth, at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. I think there are options at 12 months and then 18 months. Again, it's compulsory, and then 4 years. That's mainly what's in the national schedule or the Victorian schedule. There are optional immunizations that are not government funded. And these immunizations are there to protect the child, but also to protect the vulnerable in the community.
Yeah.
So with population immunization, we aim for a certain level or percentage of the population being immunized to create what we call a herd immunity.
Yeah,
which means
sure a lot of people have heard that through COVID.
Yeah. And so what the herd immunity does is it protects people who are not able to have the immunization for medical reasons or for whatever reasons that might be putting themselves more vulnerable to the infection. So the schedule is outlined in your green book, but you can also search on the internet what they are and when they are due. Normally, the maternal child health nurse, if you go through there, they'll usually organize your next appointment ahead of time. Right. And similarly, the doctor's clinic can also set recalls to put in place a reminder for you. Yeah, the immunizations itself ranges from hepatitis B. They've got pertussis, which is whooping cough. There is Haemophilus influenza, which is a lot of people think is the flu, but it's not. It's actually a bacterial infection. Oh, right. Yeah, there's a few of them. I don't have it all in my fingertips.
Yeah, no. It's a brilliant. Dr. Kenny, let's finish with you telling us what is the best thing about being a dad. Just one. I'm sure there's many.
Well, the best thing is seeing the children grow, seeing their innocence and the excitement of discovery, seeing them experience the world that we have, taking them places
through their eyes,
time. Yeah, that's right.
I could not agree more. Dr. Kenny, I have got a huge smile on my face because I know that we have recorded a fantastic episode with all the things that we've discussed, and I am so grateful for you coming on and chatting today.
Thank you, Murray.
Thank you.